2005's Fantastic Four wasn't a very good superhero movie, but I do think a lot of people criticize it a bit too heavily, especially when you take into account the more recent big screen adaptations. I think it depicted the origin of the team decent enough, and featured some solid chemistry between the main characters. That said, it felt more like a sitcom than it did an action-oriented comic book movie. There is very little action to be found in it. And what you do see isn't all that impressive compared to some of the other comic book films released around that time. It's just not that engaging, and even the humor and dynamic between the main heroes couldn't save it. This brings me to the official game based on the movie that was released at the end of June in 2005, almost 2 weeks before the film hit theaters. In my honest opinion, it surpasses the film in almost every way, a rare thing for a movie licensed game to achieve. Is it perfect? Nowhere close, but it does implement more iconic Fantastic Four villains from the comics into its narrative, has a far more engaging final act, and an overall stronger story than the movie does. Its only downside is that it's a video game, one a lot of people probably haven't played before or would have played when it came out, and that's kind of unfortunate. Kind of. Like I said, this game isn't perfect, it has a lot of issues. I'm not surprised it's been lost in the annals of time. Before I begin this review, I just want to thank Dorian Malia over on Patreon.com for nominating this game. I remember playing it a lot when it first came out with my brother, more than I would like to admit, and it was a nice stroll down memory lane revisiting it once again. Fantastic Four tells the origin of the titular team of heroes, Reed Richards, Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, who receive superpowers following a failed mission in space to study a cosmic cloud. They are hit with a massive amount of radiation and wake up in a medical compound run by Von Doom Industries. Victor Von Doom had financed the expedition into space and was present on the space station as well, but you never see him exposed to the cosmic radiation. It can only be assumed. I don't know if the film did a better job explaining how he got his powers, but regardless, it's not executed very well in the game. More on Doom later. So the four wake up in the medical facility, and each possess new abilities, unique from one another. Reed can now alter his body into a malleable state, stretching and reshaping his limbs at will. Sue can go invisible, project force fields, and even shoot force energy from her body like a Kamehameha wave. Johnny is now ablaze, able to manipulate fire, create fire walls, fireballs, and everything in between. Ben is given the short end of the stick, appearance-wise, because he was exposed to the highest concentration of cosmic energy, and has become a rock-like creature, possessing immense levels of superhuman strength. Ben would abandon the other three at the medical compound and run home, disgraced by his appearance. Reed and Sue would chase him down through Brooklyn, where the heroes do battle with members of the Yancey Street Gang. Following this, Ben, Reed, Sue, and Johnny save civilians on the Brooklyn Bridge, as well as a fire truck that crashes and nearly falls off into the water. A similar sequence happens in the film, one of the brighter moments, might I add. Following the events on the bridge, the four of them decide to stay together, becoming the superhero team, the Fantastic Four. It's at this point the game deviates heavily from the story of the film, and the heroes do battle with the likes of Mole Man, who intends on invading the surface world with his army of underground creatures. You even battle a giant monster called Morloaf, a moment taken right out of the very first issue of the Fantastic Four from 1961, which is really cool. With the help of Von Doom, who only has a minor scratch on his temple at this point, Reed is able to build a transformation chamber that will hopefully reverse the effects of the cosmic storm and cure them of all their ailments. It's fueled by cosmic energy, which leads them to the location of a cosmic meteor within the jungles of southern Mexico, and later, the Tikal ruins. It's here where they are confronted by the alchemist Diablo, who wants to use the cosmic meteor to take over the world. After defeating Diablo, the Fantastic Four are invited to the Von Doom Industries grand opening of a new Egyptian wing of the New York Museum of Science and History. The evil puppet master uses this opportunity to reanimate several mummies, dinosaurs, and a giant statue of Horus within the museum, in the hopes of destroying the Thing. Why? Because the Thing has become rather close to his stepdaughter, Alicia Masters. Thing had saved her from the Yancey Street Gang, and later from the Mole Man's creatures during his attack on New York, and they began to develop a romance. Puppet Master feels his stepdaughter's association with the Thing and the Fantastic Four is too dangerous, which kind of makes sense. My question is how all of these creatures and statues are reanimated by the Puppet Master though. The game doesn't really explain it. One could assume it's like the comics, through some sort of radioactive clay, or maybe even technology, but Reed leans more on the idea that they were brought back because of the cosmic powers of the Fantastic Four, which is a bit of a stretch, and yes, that pun was intended. Following the museum and Puppet Master, the Fantastic Four defend themselves from Doombots in Times Square, and are blamed for the destruction by Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., who imprison the heroes in the vault. They manage to free themselves and subdue a riot caused by the escaping Dragon Man. Blaster also makes an appearance here, being held in a special cell, and is released unintentionally by Reed. Eventually, Nick Fury decides to release the Fantastic Four and let them join the MCU, on one condition: if they help undo the damage caused in a secret S.H.I.E.L.D. lab following experiments on biotech salvaged from the Von Doom space station. The cosmic radiation has altered the organic and inorganic matter of the facility, turning it into a negative zone of sorts. You battle a giant mutated plasma worm and even Annihilus, who is in possession of a powerful cosmic energy source. After defeating the villain, Reed uses it to fully charge his transformation chamber. And this brings me to the final stages of the game, against Victor Von Doom, now calling himself Dr. Doom. Throughout the game, Victor berates the Fantastic Four, blaming their cosmic powers and radiation as the source behind Mole Man's creatures, the reanimation of the mummies and dinosaurs in the museum, and he constantly harps them about the damages to said buildings and areas of the city after their battles. It's all their fault and no one else's apparently. He conveniently appears out of the shadows after all of these threats have been neutralized, and all he does is bitch and moan, getting angry at Reed for putting Susan in harm's way. What an asshole. As the game progresses, he slowly discovers that his body is changing, that he's gaining powers due to the cosmic storm, just like the Fantastic Four did. The cutscene that shows this in an elevator is weirdly animated. For the first half of it, he looks nothing like Julian McMahon. It's so bad. What the fuck happened to his face? Anyways, Susan and Reed grow closer, and Victor is of course in love with her, so now he wants to straight up destroy the Fantastic Four. He infiltrates the Baxter building in his new Dr. Doom attire, and lures the Thing into an elevator with some candy, I guess. He then uses Reed's transformation chamber to steal Ben's power and absorb it into his, turning Ben human once again. With the Thing out of the way, Dr. Doom is free to take out Reed, Johnny, and Sue without much effort. Ben is able to get his powers back, however, reaching Doom just in time to allow his teammates to recover. With their combined efforts, the Fantastic Four battle Dr. Doom in an epic finale and freeze him in place following thermal shock, intense heat, and then cold. The Fantastic Four game features close to 40 levels, spanning across 10 different sections or chapters. While it may seem like a fairly large game lengthwise, it really isn't. Some levels last like 15 to 20 minutes, while others can take as little as 2 minutes to complete. In that way, it's a little inconsistent. Regardless, I find the narrative of the game to be quite satisfying. Is it amazing? No, but it's far more exciting and action-packed than the movie was, that's for sure. Critics weren't too kind on this game when it came out, but I think any fan of the Fantastic Four and their comics will enjoy it, somewhat. It features a lot of great villains from the Rogues Gallery, some of which are not well known, draws from the source material far more than the film does, and even explores the same ideas from the movie, just in different ways, like the relationship between Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters, for example. There are still a lot of silly moments in it, things that are naturally bad with the movie, but you shouldn't be too harsh on the game. It's not its fault the film sucked. Despite being weighed down a bit by the movie, I think Fantastic Four is the best game we've had based off these characters. I know that's not saying much, we've only had 3, 2 of which are movie licensed, but still. This game isn't half bad, not as bad as a lot of people say it is. It might even be one of the best movie-licensed superhero games out there. Again, that's not saying much, most are pretty shit, but Fantastic Four was a lot better than it had any right to be. I hope we can all agree with that. In terms of the gameplay, Fantastic Four is pretty fun for what it's worth. Each character has multiple combos they can perform using light and strong attacks. Each combo serves a purpose too. Some inflict increased damage, some are better for destroying shields, and others can hit multiple enemies at once. Each hero also has 3 power moves they can do that drain their cosmic energy meters, indicated in blue. Anything from Reed's stretch punch and spinning fists to Ben's elbow drop, and you can level up each of these attacks with experience, making them even stronger as you go. The Fantastic Four can also perform supers, which are basically their ultimate attacks. You get them by either filling up the super meter by doing a variety of combos, or by collecting golden 4 icons hidden in some of the stages. Mr. Fantastic turns himself into a giant wheel and rules over his enemies. The Invisible Woman releases a blast of force energy all around her. The Human Torches is much of the same, except it's a blast of intense heat and fire. And the Things is sadly the most boring of the bunch. He just spins around repeatedly, kind of disappointing if you ask me. Fantastic Four emphasizes the idea of teamwork. As Sue, you can create a temporary force field around allies at any given time, to get through obstacles or protect weak and dying teammates if need be. There are also finishing moves that can be done to sub-bosses, and even some main bosses throughout the game, once they're weak enough, which is pretty badass. Usually they involve interacting with them as Ben, but sometimes you do it as the Human Torch as well. The combat system in Fantastic Four does get repetitive. It becomes a button masher in many areas and isn't anything special, but it does get the job done for the most part. I don't have any major complaints. The fact that you can switch between the heroes at any given time as long as they are available in the mission you're playing does remedy the repetitive nature of everything a little bit, and you can even play this game in co-op, which is really fun. Mind you, having now played the game single player, I do prefer it that way because the camera is a lot more manageable, and while your AI teammate isn't the brightest, the variety to the levels is improved upon slightly. You have ones where you partner up, some where the whole team is involved, the main bosses, and others where you go at it alone, so it keeps things fresh as it can be with this kind of repetitive gameplay. There is even a level near the end of the game where you play as Ben Grimm after losing your powers and have to reach the transformation chamber to get them back. This one is different because all of your attacks are now weak as shit, and you have to find things in the environment you can use to your advantage against Doom's robots. It can be quite challenging, especially on harder difficulties in single player, and when you finally become the Thing again, it's so satisfying cleaning house and having to reach Dr. Doom and save your friends. The series of boss battles at the end of the game are pretty epic, and blow the fight at the end of the movie out of the water, in my opinion. I mentioned that the combat can get a bit repetitive, but one of the more annoying things about this game are the platforming sections. Mind you, there are very few of them, but when they do pop up, they can be a real pain in the ass. The one in the T-Cal stage where you have to pull the lever and open the door is probably the worst. Every time you miss, you fall and land on a spiked floor, which doesn't let you go. You just keep taking damage and have to spam the jump button to get out of it. Easy enough, but the problem is your stupid AI partner that follows you too closely and will just walk into the spikes. They don't know enough to spam the jump, and if you're not careful, they just let themselves die. I found myself having to lure them out of the room each time I attempted the jumps, which slowed the process down even more. This is the only instance that I really wished I had someone to play with when I recorded this game. The AI is just terrible. I also brought up that one cutscene that makes Victor Von Doom look really weird, nothing like the actor Julian McMahon, but there's another one that leaves me scratching my head, where Ben is turned into a human again by Doom in the lab. You clearly hear Reed talking to Ben off-screen, but then Dr. Doom just transforms him without any interference. It makes no sense. Where the fuck did Reed go?
Have you seen Victor?
I followed him to the lab, but Victor ain't himself. Jeez. It just might work after all. Ah!
Be careful what you wish for. This is a man embracing his destiny.
Before I end this review, I should mention that this game does offer a fair bit of bonus content, anything from trailers to interviews with the film's cast, even a multi-part sit-down with Stan Lee himself, which is pretty cool. You unlock these bonuses by collecting hidden Fantastic Four icons in each of the levels, which adds a bit of replay value to everything. All in all, Fantastic Four may not be one of the best superhero games out there, far from it, but I do believe it's a lot better than most people give it credit for. It deserves a revisit. Its gameplay can get repetitive, it suffers from a lot of the same issues as the film, which is expected, but it does have a lot of charm. Like I said, it's the best Fantastic Four game we have right now, which isn't saying much, but at least it's saying something. This has been NerdGasm. I hope you enjoyed watching this review, and I want to thank Dorian Malia once again for nominating it over on Patreon.com. If you want to have a say in which superhero, comic book, or anime-related video game I take a look at next on the channel, become a financial backer over on Patreon.com. Any bit helps in making projects like these a reality, and it keeps the YouTube dream alive. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, bell icon for notifications, and share it to anyone you know who might enjoy this kind of stuff. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, and long live your inner nerd.
Who the hell are you? Nick Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.